All right, so the Sport and Event Marketing Program, as I alluded to earlier, is a brand new program that's been developed here at Fanshawe College. There are a few different programs across various colleges in Ontario specific to this type of program. And here in London, Ontario, we're really trying to kind of develop the program in a way where we can engage students, provide them the opportunity to participate in experiential learning opportunities, introduce live clients through the program, and different aspects of the program that are going to give students the opportunity to be well suited and positioned for employment opportunities down the road. So that was really, in a nutshell, what was considered when we first launched the development of the program and made some tweaks and changes along the way. Okay, so Lawrence Kinlan School of Business. The School of Business is the largest school at Fanshawe College. So Fanshawe College is one of the largest colleges in the province of Ontario. But specific to Fanshawe College and the Lawrence Kinlan School of Business, the majority of programs that run through this school are business-related programs. So it includes both undergraduate and postgraduate level programs as well as degrees. And the one thing that we really do have here at Fanshawe is a dramatic connection with industry, not just in Ontario, but all across Canada. And I'll expand on that a little bit as well as when I discuss some of the experiential learning opportunities through the internship of this program as you evolve through the three levels of the sport and event marketing program. So it's led by industry professionals. All of our courses that are taught in the School of Business are taught by professors who have a significant amount of background in the field in which they're teaching. So there's a lot of specific opportunity for students to learn and relate course material to experiential learning opportunities. So the Sport and Event Marketing Program is a graduate certificate program that consists of 3 levels. So being the fact that it's the first launch or running of the program commencing this fall, level 1 is going to start fall 2020. Level 2 would essentially be our winter term in 2021. And then level 3 comprises of the internship opportunity, which would be spring, summer of 2021 for the first intake. So the program, essentially, hopefully our desire is that we'll be able to provide extensive knowledge and skills to the students in core areas of sports management and event management. So there are a number of different aspects that we'll be taking students throughout the program. Areas such as networking opportunities, making connections with others in the field. This program is really built around that interactivity to create opportunity for students as they move forward and graduate from the program, obviously with the desire that they find a place of employment when they do graduate. So some of the program details. The program teaches students to leverage sport and event marketing as an all-encompassing marketing communication medium. One of the more recent kind of approaches to sport and event management, or marketing for that matter, is the use of technology. So a lot of courses that are introduced into the program fall under that area of Google Analytics and web design. So skills learned also apply to other sectors, not just sport, and I'll talk a little bit about that in some more detail. So some prospective students come into the program or apply to the program thinking that the only job that they can really get is in professional sports. That's just one minute small aspect of it. So there may be students that have a desire to work on events. It could be larger concerts, nonprofit organization work, or functional work around local communities, for example. So there are going to be tons of different opportunities for students, and the landscape there and the foundation that we're really developing through this program is going to hopefully give students that opportunity, depending on their desire and where they see fit. So the next few slides just give you a little bit of information around the courses that would be introduced in this program. So when students come into the first level in the fall, for example, of 2020, they would take courses that involve sports, entertainment, and event marketing, Google Analytics and marketing design, which would be more a web-based design approach. Generally, for most of our programs, we have a professional communications course built into primarily the first level or even the second level of a program. And then there are courses around leadership in sport and event marketing and nonprofit and event marketing. So the experiential learning component that will exist in these programs will revolve around project-based work and assignments that will be connected to live clients. So a number of projects that we are currently working on for some of these courses will introduce students the opportunity to partake in actually taking on a project within an organization that can be utilized in a capacity where we can kind of measure and gauge student interaction and results through completing these assignments, and they'll be connected to grades in the course and the program. So that's kind of the interactivity piece that we're really trying to capture through this program, is introducing experiential learning opportunities and live client work that's kind of built in or housed within the grading mechanism of the courses that are taken in this program. Now in level 2, so entering the winter semester, for example, there would be coursework completed on international sport marketing, various festival sports and event management, a course that currently I'm actually developing right now, and I've got an extensive background in the development and teaching of courses in ethics. This course will be specific to the ethics of sport, and sponsorship, activation, and analysis, quite a large area when we look at partnerships in industry. And sport media and public relations is another really interesting course that will be introduced into level 2. A lot of case-based work as well will be introduced in these various courses. And for those that have a specific interest in certain sports and areas of sport, there have been a lot of recent cases in the past few years that relate to sport management and sport marketing that hopefully we can capture and infuse in some of the course design. You'll notice there in the bottom, there are 2 bullets that relate to the 2 courses on sport and community marketing in Canada, and then innovation applications. This is somewhat unique to Fanshawe in that a number of our programs are starting to connect content with innovation and innovative practices. So what's currently in consideration amongst the level 2 courses is the potential opportunity for some students to branch off from that last course in sport and community marketing in Canada to partake in a course on innovation applications. So there's a little bit of flexibility there as it pertains to student opportunity relative to the last course essentially that they would take in level 2. Okay, so courses in level 3, really it's fundamentally one course, and this would be the internship course that would be infused in the program. So this course is really built around the opportunity for students to complete an internship within an organization that is external to the college. One thing to note around this internship opportunity is it does not have to be specific to the City of London, Ontario. I have had some students that have asked questions around the program saying, in the event I did get into the program and I was looking to take an internship outside of London, is that possible? And it definitely is possible. So anywhere across Canada, for that matter, we would have the opportunity to have students placed in an internship setting. So the internship will combine a lot of the in-class learning that has been completed by the student throughout the first 2 levels of the program with actual work experience in some capacity in the sport industry. So students will acquire an internship that requires them to utilize their knowledge and skills that they've acquired in other courses. And I really want to push students to understand the fact that when they look to acquire an internship, that a lot of that level of initiative is required to kind of go out and meet different people and talk to different organizations. I do have a number of contacts with various organizations that I've been working with thus far. And I think collectively between students in the program and myself and some of the other faculty members, we're going to be able to provide quite a landscape and a foundation for student opportunities. So having said that, there's also the notion that students would only be able to complete internships in specific areas of sport. That's definitely not true. And I've had a number of conversations with prospective students and other faculty members that have turned their attention to not just professional sports, for example, but youth and amateur sports. Also not just sports, it could be event management. It could be a case of students that have a desire to work for a large organization such as Adidas or Nike, and they maybe want to be a brand manager or they want to get into retail sales, right? So it's not just about working in a sales capacity for a large professional organization as much as it is creating an opportunity and a platform for students to experience what exists out there and then utilizing kind of the knowledge and skills to take them down that path where they want to end up and where they want to go. So It's important to note also, and I don't have this built into a slide, but there's a sector screening application process that students will be required to complete. And otherwise in Ontario here, we refer to it as a police check. But a lot of the work that students would participate in throughout the 3 levels of this program would require them to be involved, and it could be minor sports organizations or assisting with tournaments that would require a police check to be completed. And students, we're hoping, will be able to kind of go through that process early in the program to position themselves so that there are a lot of hurdles and red tape that they'd have to jump through to offer assistance to organizations external to the college. Now, it's important to note that when that does occur, typically what happens is students are required to get that completed in the place that they originally reside. So having said that, what that does is it puts us in a position where different jurisdictions may have different timelines with respect to how they go about completing that process. So definitely when we begin the program, that's something that we're going to try and encourage people to get a head start on, just so that they can get that completed, and then there aren't hurdles that they have to kind of get over when they try to assist or volunteer or support organizations that are out there. Primarily what you'll see is in the workplace, these opportunities are commonplace to complete this, but more importantly, there may be students that are helping with organizations that involve youth, minors. So that's why we want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. And at the same time, when you get that completed, then you're in a very good position moving forward to complete work in an organization where that may be required. Okay, so you'll notice in this internship course as well that students will work closely with a placement supervisor in the organization that they're completing their internship in. And you'll see the number 490 hours. That primarily is across the whole course, which essentially is, it's a 15-week course, so it would be over approximately a 14-week period. We're currently in a position where we're looking at providing students with an opportunity to complete a small number of those hours outside of level 3 in either a not-for-profit or volunteering capacity. So one thing that I'm currently going to be proposing is, in the event we have the opportunity to do so, we would have students complete maybe upwards of 70 hours in that capacity. So that would leave 420 hours, and it would be across approximately 12 weeks in level 3. So there's a few reasons why we would look to do that. One most notable reason is that it does offer students flexibility. But from my standpoint, more importantly, I think what it does is it offers students the opportunity to work in various capacities. So we may have students that say, you know, I want to maybe test the waters a little bit and not for profit, or I want to volunteer with specific organizations. The one reason why I really thought about this as well was the fact that there are a number of organizations that exist out there in the sports industry and event industry where they have an influx of demand for their work at a certain point in time during the year. So some companies say, we would love to take a student on for an internship, but maybe spring and summer doesn't work very well for us. We have more demand for our work in winter and fall. Okay, so those are just some areas of flexibility that we're currently working through with respect to the level 3 internship course. Okay, so some industry connections. So over the past 6 months, I've been working quite extensively with a lot of organizations on partnerships and connections for this program. For the most part, what we're looking at is the connection and the partnership to exist for the internship opportunity. But at the same time, I'm working with a lot of these organizations in various capacities. So it could be the completion of a project or what have you in a certain course, or bringing them in as guest speakers or live clients. So although I have a list of approximately 60 to 70 organizations that I've been working with, these are just examples of organizations that I've tried to bring out in various aspects of the program that are going to offer variety. So the London Knights Hockey Club, for many of you that may not be as familiar with the province of Ontario, the Ontario Hockey League is one of the most notable junior hockey leagues in the world. And the London Knights in particular is one of the most pronounced junior hockey clubs in the world. And they're right here in the city of London, Ontario. So they operate out of Bud Gardens, which is the big facility there. And Spectra owns Bud Gardens, and Spectra is the large company that will set up concerts and a lot of major events at that facility. So that right there, when you look at the first two bullets, that encompasses not just specific to sport, but also event planning and opportunities that exist there. So there are two big partners that I'm currently working with, and the desire is to provide significant opportunity for students through those avenues. Now, right in our backyard, essentially, is Fanshawe College and the Fitness and Wellness Center, which is a brand new, recently built facility that houses everything from varsity sports to a lot of the different aspects of wellness that are infused in the college. And I've had significant meetings with them as well over the past several months around opportunities for students to participate in some work, whether it be setting up smaller events within the facility for students at the college to participate in that are sport related or event related or what have you. So those opportunities will exist as well. Source for Sports, many of you may not know what that is, but that's a big retail outlet in the city of Ontario that has tons of connections with a lot of the major suppliers. So whether it be Bauer or CCM from a hockey standpoint, or we have Warrior, if you look at lacrosse, a number of different sports that exist. But when I talk to a lot of prospective students and people that are currently in the sport management field, I found that there were a number of people that actually got into retail and then they made a connection through retail with one of the larger organizations and ended up branching off and going into sales with one of the larger companies. So I thought, what an opportunity to get students to actually work in a sport-related organization in a retail or sales capacity if they had a desire to do so. Many of you may have heard of Sportsnet. So Sportsnet, one of the largest telecommunication companies that exist out there in the sports world in Canada, had discussions with them. And MLSE is Maple Leaf Sport and Entertainment. Many of you probably will have heard of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the NHL, and then we've got other connections as well with the Toronto Rock and the Toronto Argonauts and the Canadian Football League. MLSE, one of the very, very, very large organizations that exists out there that provide a wealth of opportunity for students through internship programs. And it's important to know that some of these large organizations actually run their own internship programs. So establishing a partnership and a connection with them through Fanshawe College is going to be really, really useful to broaden our horizons for opportunities for students. All right, so I'm really excited to be working with some of these larger companies. Sensplex is actually the large organization out of Ottawa, where the NHL club is located there, the Ottawa Senators. I've had great discussions with them. And then the YMCA, all across Canada, there are YMCAs, which are really non-profit organizations or associations that outfit developmental opportunities and wellness opportunities for various people in the geographical region. They've had a lot of interest in potentially connecting with us as well. And then turning our attention to something very small would be Oak Ridge Baseball Association. That's an example of a very small minor sport organization that in a lot of these cases, they really are looking for support and assistance and help. So being able to partner with them and kind of branch off from what they do just gives another kind of deviation or different viewer aspect of what opportunities will exist throughout this program, right? So that just gives you a little bit of a different variety, if you will, to consider when we look at some of the industry connections that we're considering when we go through something like this and designing a program like this. So employment opportunities. So I've had some discussions with people as well around, once we complete a program like this, what are some of the opportunities that may be presented for us for employment? There are a number of different roles or jobs that exist out there. Really, it's important to note that in isolation, completing a program doesn't solely prevent the opportunity for a student to then go out and actually get the job that they want. There's a lot that happens in between, right? A lot of it is networking based and, meeting different people and positioning yourself for opportunity and success. So some different titles, if you will, that would be people that would be in this kind of area of business would be sports marketing managers, managers of marketing and sponsorship, marketing and event specialists, managers in sport development. Brand managers would be more so associated with those large companies like Nike and Adidas and all these different organizations that would exist in the sport management world. Being a director in sport and entertainment, that would probably be more aligned with an organization like Spectra that has a facility that they just, have hockey as one of their many different events that happens in their facility. An events and planning manager athletics facilities and events officer. These are all just different employment opportunities and different capacities that may exist. So it's important to note that there are spin-offs of this as well for opportunities. So for example, some people may have a desire to get into an organization where they start branching off and doing journalism or writing, or they may want to get into being in front of a camera, right? And you start getting into being a broadcaster, for example. Those are all significant opportunities that students would be able to branch into in the event they had a desire to do so. The other area as well is being a professional sports agent. So those in certain circumstances would require more significant advancement of training in those areas, but definitely a sports management program would provide you the foundation for that. Okay, so a number of different elements of the program that we've currently developed or are still being tweaked and adjusted a little bit for the launch of the program come fall of 2020. But that'll provide you with a lot of information at this point in time that probably would be useful in your decision making in the event you were looking to apply to get into a program such as this. So Saurabh, was it a good time to turn it over to you for questions?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor, for so much in-depth information. I do have a poll coming for everyone to just kind of get a sense of how closely, how attentively were you listening to Professor Bill Reid. But I do have a couple of questions, Professor, because you've taught with Fanshawe for so long. One thing that I think a lot of students don't understand or don't understand as well is the experiential learning aspect of how learning happens at Fanshawe for any program, but also like specifically this program as well. Can you speak briefly about the experiential learning that we champion at Fanshawe? Can you speak about how that happens exactly in a classroom and through other tools that you use?
Right, yes, very much so. So the experiential learning component that you've alluded to is really it's the foundational piece of Fanshawe College. So a lot of different programs and courses that are developed with the understanding or the notion that we want to provide students an opportunity to not just learn content through understanding knowledge and skills, but how they can apply those knowledge and skills in a real world setting. So a number of different projects and aspects of work will combine the experiential learning component and tie it in with content that's learned throughout a program. So you're right, that's one of the biggest attributes of our programs at Fanshawe is that anytime we look at introducing content in a program, we ask ourselves the question, how can we connect it or link it to industry? So the experiential learning component, whether it be taking students outside of the college to complete that work from, let's say for internships, or bring live clients into the classroom so that people can actually speak to students relative to their work experience as well. So there are various different ways that we can kind of tie in the experiential learning component, but it's a really large attribute of any program and course that's developed at the college.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. I do have a couple of other questions for you, but we have questions coming in already from our audience. Please, if you have a question, write it down in the Q&A section, and I will pose those questions to Professor. So the first question is around a lot of international students specifically want to do 2 graduate certificate programs, so that acts as a combination because they've done 2 years of education so that they can qualify for up to 3 years of postgraduate work permit in Canada, but also because it adds 2 skill sets to their kitty. So a student is asking specifically around sports and event marketing as a combination with our marketing management, which already is a super popular program with our audience.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. I see it's Angie that's asking me these 2 questions that are here. So I can speak to both of them, Saurabh, but those are excellent questions. Just recently, it was recently in May when I've kind of taken on this role as the coordinator of the program. So I'm getting my feet wet in a lot of these different areas of the program. And they're great questions because they have come up on more than one occasion. So it definitely is a good combination with other programs. Specifically, Angie's asking about the marketing management program. Courses like Google Analytics, really that is a course that's built into our program as well. So you may be familiar with the internal transfer opportunities that may exist across programs. So if you've completed a course in another program, it may provide you the opportunity to kind of transfer that credit into this program. So as a college, we have a requirement where students have to complete It's 25% minimum of a course to get residency. And in doing so, there are a certain number of courses, obviously, across the program. So some courses are transferable and others are not. But for the most part, students can transfer a certain number of courses if they align and fit with the coursework that's completed within this program. So that's definitely a possibility. So from a fit standpoint, you can see how that's aligned. Second question Angie asked there, would like to know if students can apply for paid internships. That's a great question, because I have had that question come up a few times. And in particular, when I speak to some large organizations, they actually have said, you know, we know that it's an unpaid internship, but we actually pay our students that complete internships here. So in some cases, what we do is we have discussions around honorariums being provided or stipends that are provided by way of payment. So it's definitely a case if a student had an opportunity to complete an internship and the organization was looking at providing compensation for that, there would be a way to be able to complete that. But most notably for our benefit as a college developing this program, we wanted to be able to provide the opportunities to companies that may not have the funding to pay students to complete an internship, but that they require some of that work to be completed. So some students may say, I just want to take that opportunity because it exists. And then even in those cases, potentially they may provide a stipend or some kind of honorarium after the completion of the internship. So yeah, there are some large organizations out there, and the one that comes to mind for me is MLSE, who really hires in students on an internship basis through their program. And they say we manage all of that ourselves. So is there any issue with that? So there's really no issue with that. It's just a matter of how the organization kind of works with us in that capacity. So our program is unpaid per se, if the opportunity exists. But if employers look at kind of providing some kind of stipend, we would give consideration to that as well.
Awesome. At this stage, Professor, I would like to do the poll that we've created with students and our partners joining us today. We have lots of questions coming in,
For sure.
but I will launch this poll. All of you have an opportunity. There are 3 questions to this poll, just to see how you were listening and how you were able to communicate in this session as well. So there is a poll that is being launched. Please try to answer. There are 3 questions to this poll. I will read out the 3 questions one by one. The first question is, in the sports and event marketing program, can students only complete their level 3 internship in London, Ontario? Professor?
Yes. So the answer to that question is no. So they would actually be able to complete it anywhere in London or outside of London, anywhere in Canada. So I have had some students ask that question, saying, you know, can I complete it if I get an internship opportunity at some other location around Canada? Most definitely they can do that.
Second question is, will students be well positioned to obtain employment in only sports related organizations after graduating? Professor?
Yeah, great question. So that answer specifically would be no. The way that you'd kind of read that question, you could answer in various ways, right? But really what we're looking at there is the fact that it doesn't mean that by completing the program that you're solely restricted to employment in sports management. You may have interests in other areas of event planning, for example.
Okay. And the third question is, will students be required to complete a vulnerable sector screening check as a condition of entering the program?
Yeah, so the answer to that would be yes. So upon entering the program, the requirement to complete the vulnerable sector screening check, or what we otherwise refer to as the police check, would be instrumental in students being able to capitalize or take advantage of the experiential learning opportunities with a lot of the organizations that exist out there.
That's awesome. And I will add to that that is a requirement for many of our programs as well, a police check. But there is a process of doing that as well. So
Right.
it takes some time, but there are absolutely processes in place to do that. Now, there are many questions coming in, Professor. I would like to take one of the questions, and then I would invite your input into that as well. This question is coming in from Vincent, and the question is, with this new program being offered, do you think the program has a lot of market in terms of job opportunities? This professor can answer, but what I will say about all of Fanshawe programs is, when we are launching a new program, it doesn't work like that. We come up with an idea and we just launch that program. Being a public college, we have to go through a very detailed program development process. And as an integral part of that program development process is one, getting industry feedback, getting feedback from them around our content and around what we want to teach our students, around if there are jobs available in this, but also a labor market check. So checking how many jobs are available in this program or in this sector in London, in Ontario, in Canada. So those are some things that we do for every program. And only if the answer to those questions is yes, then we can go ahead and develop our programs. But specific to this program, Professor, what is your response to that?
Yeah, well, it's really an interesting question, because the one thing that I'm learning as I venture through the development of this program, and I've had experience with this over the years in the work that I do in the hockey world, is that students would have to require the understanding that if they have a desire to work in a large organization, say a professional sports organization, it doesn't just, it doesn't happen overnight, right? So it's not a case where students graduate from a program and then they get hired on by maybe a professional sports team. What I've learned over the last period of time is that it provides the opportunity and the platform for students to get opportunities that exist out there. So in the event students were looking to get a career job working for a professional sports organization, there are different avenues to go about doing that. So a lot of fundamentally what this program is going to be built on is providing those connections and those opportunities for students moving forward. So from an employment opportunity standpoint, I really do think it depends on what the student's desire is. So some students may have a desire to kind of work in different cities or maybe travel a little bit or what have you. They may want to stay in a certain city. So really opportunities may potentially be limited depending on your circumstance individually. But for the most part, whether you look at professional sports, you look at retail sales, you look at event planning, we have a lot of organizations primarily around the London region that would be hiring people on a frequent basis. So the opportunities that do exist, we do think that they're going to be there. It's just a matter in what capacity, depending on the desires of the student. And also on that topic, we have to be aware of the fact that there aren't a whole lot of programs that do exist out there that are specific to this. And that's why we launched the program initially, was that there are only a handful of different schools across Ontario that have similar programs. And you'll notice too that in a lot of cases, those opportunities will grow over time with a lot of the connections that are established and made throughout the program.
Thank you, Professor. The next question, and actually I think it's two-part question coming in from Nicole Bennett. So the question is, the internship is scheduled if this for the fall semester, the internship would be in the summer. Her question is specifically around, are there enough internship opportunities available in the summer? She is specifically interested in hockey, building a career in that. So is that a challenge getting like an internship in the summer? Because the season truly starts in the fall for that.
It's actually a great question, because I have had those conversations with a lot of the organizations. And if you look, Nicole, at a lot of the large organizations, it's actually surprising how much work is done in what we would categorize typically as the off season. So if you look at the London Knights, for example, in the OHL, they have the draft that occurs, in the spring period. They do a lot of their planning around the off season, if you will. Now, from that aspect, there are obviously significant opportunities for students to work with those organizations from an experiential standpoint with game day operations and things when the season's going on. But I look at that in a little bit of a different way, in that a lot of times I think that those somewhat downtime periods are great opportunities for students to actually get in there, because they can spend more time with the people that work in those organizations to learn some of the requisite skills. So while there's a little bit of a lag in some periods of time, I think there's a lot of significant opportunity for students that want to kind of go through the internship during the spring, summer months.
Thank you, Professor Reed. The next question, I will take Nicole's next question as well with this, because the question is around, I think the student has already completed a sports management program in a university. Would you say this program is still beneficial for me? Is it building upon the skills I've already obtained, or will this be similar to things I've already done?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So specific to a certain sports management program, I think a lot of that would come down to what type of curriculum was developed within that program and whether there's a little bit of variance here. Obviously, the connections may differ depending on the location that it was completed. Really, it would be program by program that we would want to give that consideration to. But I'd be interested to know a little bit more if Nicole wants to reach out to me in that respect, because I could have a more of a specific discussion with her on some of the different attributes of the comparisons amongst programs and what opportunities may exist.
Okay. Nicole, I will make sure you have the contact details for Professor so that you can reach out if you have any specific questions around that as well. Is that okay, Professor?
Yeah, for sure. And I think Nicole has reached out to me, actually, if I have the name correct. So
Okay.
she can definitely reach back out to me and we can have a further conversation around that.
Fantastic. The next question, Professor Reed, is around the GPA requirements for internship. So is there like a specific GPA requirement on how, as a prerequisite to get the internship? And also, like, if you can talk about the process the internship happens. You spoke about networking during your session as well. So if you can talk about that as well, please.
So the GPA question specific to GPA, there isn't a specific GPA because it's a graduate certificate program. So really the graduate certificate program requires students to have completed some kind of diploma program or undergraduate degree prior to getting into the graduate certificate program. So from that standpoint, there isn't a specific GPA or a minimum GPA as it pertains to that. It's more so related to, do you actually have the credential that's required before applying? So for example, if you had a student that hasn't obtained an undergraduate degree at a university or a diploma at the college level, then they wouldn't meet that requirement to get into the program for it being a graduate certificate. Okay, so that's specific to the GPA interview question.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So the next question is around if students want to consider doing an internship in their home country, if they're an international student and they want to do the internship in their home country, is that acceptable for the program requirements?
Yeah, as of right now, it's not, unfortunately. We could potentially explore that a little bit further. One of the challenges that we do have is with respect to safety regulations and some of the work that's required to be completed within the jurisdiction in Canada. So we can definitely kind of explore those opportunities, but at this point in time, I think the opportunities that exist are solely within the Canadian marketplace.
Okay, thank you, Professor Reed. The next question is around, and while I'm reading out this question, I'm thinking something. How easy is it to find a job after I complete this course? Is it well paid? And on from my end, I would say easy is a word I'd never use for anything, a program, a job, or anything but professor.
Right, and it is a great question though, and there's a few different angles and aspects that we can take from this. How easy it is to find a job for some students, it may be extremely easy. For others, it could be more of a challenge. It really does come down to the biggest thing that I've learned over the last little while with a program like this is a lot of the opportunity that's created is through networking. And I've heard countless stories of people, even a lot of people who are very, very high level kind of public figures right now, whether they be commissioners of professional sports leagues. They've all spoken to the fact that when they started in the industry, they started in a job that they otherwise would never have taken, but they just loved the industry and wanted to get into it. I remember hearing a story of a professional sports player in hockey who was making millions of dollars a year. And in the last year of their contract, they ended up, I think they ended up retiring from professional sports, making approximately $3 million a season. And upon them retiring, they wanted to get into the management side of business, and they took a job with a professional sports team making $30,000 a year. And now they won't mention the name, but now they are actually a general manager of an NHL team currently. So that just gives you an example of how some students are just, they try to get themselves in a position to say, I just want an opportunity that exists. I've heard stories as well of students who were offered jobs only after somebody else that was offered the job turned it down, and they took advantage of it, and then they were able to get into the organization and got promoted and moved on in that capacity. So I think the sky's the limit for people really when it comes down to what opportunities do exist. From a pay standpoint, I think what happens in a lot of these types of jobs is you would enter into the workplace in an entry-level position, and then you'd have opportunity to grow over a period of time. The one point I want to make around that area of discussion, though, is that in sports management, it's not your typical 9 to 5 type of job that a lot of people would understand or expect in some cases, especially now with everything that's going on in the world. You know, we've got the pandemic situation going on right now. There's a lot of variability and flexibility that exists. But if you're working for an organization that's involved in, you know, some level of sports and entertainment, there's often a lot of work that's required to be done at nights, during evenings and weekends and those kinds of things. So it's something definitely to consider if you're looking to get into it, that it's not something that you would be working, you know, solely a 9 to 5 type of role.
Thank you. The next question, Professor, is actually specific to international students' requirements, and I can answer that. The question is around Duolingo, the language test around the world, because of a lot of language center testing being closed across the world. Fanshawe College absolutely accepts Duolingo as a English requirement, and we also accept IELTS indicator. So if you go on our website, fanshawec.ca/international, you would get details around what is the Duolingo score that you require. But yes, we absolutely accept the Duolingo score at this stage. The next question, Professor, is from Alan. The question is, will the college or program provide additional tools if employment isn't found early after graduating, especially if opportunities aren't found early? And this is where I think we can also speak about our career services and the tools that they provide. But Professor.
Right. So it's a good question. And the easy answer would be to say, no, we don't, because once you complete the program, you kind of go off on your own and you look to seek employment. But that's really the easy answer. The more specific and realistic answer is that we provide opportunities and support for all our students, whether it be during them completing their program or after. So what we try to do in a lot of our programs is we build a network of support and connection through linking students together that are not just in the program, but have graduated from the program, so that we can keep in touch with them and provide them opportunities. So some things that come to mind for me is every time I get contacted by an organization looking to hire somebody, I often think of, okay, what about the students that have graduated that maybe are looking for employment, right? So I think that's part of the networking aspect that comes along with completing a program like this. And let me say too, that I think that's one benefit here at Fanshawe, is that we do have a lot of connection between our student body and our faculty. And the faculty really do provide a lot of opportunity and do a lot of work for the students to try and assist them with being successful post-grad as well, right? So specifically, there isn't something that we can say, yes, if you don't find employment opportunities after graduating, that this happens. But I can tell you that, you know, through connections with faculty and students, there are often opportunities that we try to kind of assist students with being successful, not just when they're completing the program, but post-completion as well.
Thank you, Professor. And as you said, networking is such an important aspect to getting employment in the area, the field within sports and event that you wanted to get as well. The only thing that I'd like to add to that is Fanshawe's Career Services provides you help around, well, of course, at the start, resume, LinkedIn, networking, and the conferences that they do. But also they have an online tool that all our students have access to, and that access remains even after graduating to an extent. So that is just one additional tool that our career services provides you as well, apart from all the subject-specific expertise you will get from the program coordinator and the professors in your program as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Saurabh, because the Career Services Department at Fanshawe, what I like to see is when students work in tandem with their faculty as well as career services, because opportunities don't typically just come in isolation, right? Sometimes they'll come from various different angles and in different ways. So definitely having students set kind of a foundation for themselves of expectation around, you know, meeting different people, networking, like you mentioned the term networking. I come from the world of HR typically, right, which is significant around networking opportunities. So one of the things throughout the program is going to be positioning students with those connections so that when the opportunities do present themselves, it's a little bit easier for students to take advantage of those opportunities.
Awesome. So the next question I think is from Meenakshi, and the question is around the post-admission requirements of the police record check. Now, the question is specific to if the record check should be done in their home country. Typically, what I see, even for our health programs, is the employers don't accept the health check, the police check from the home countries, because the employment is in Ontario or Canada. So typically, in my experience, they wanted police check from Ontario. And so we absolutely know the process. International can guide you through that process as well. But Professor, if you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, sure. And different jurisdictions may have different rules, but I can tell you for the most part in the province of Ontario, a lot of the police checks that are completed have to be completed in where you originally reside. So that can be a little bit of a challenge, because I know there are some countries where it may take a significantly longer period of time to complete a police check. So for the most part, it's my understanding that it would be completed in your home country. The police check wouldn't necessarily be completed locally here, because they would probably send you back to get it from your home country in the first place. I can even speak to that, because if you have people locally in London versus somebody that even lives a half an hour away from London, they often have to go to different areas to get their police check completed. So when you look at broadening the spectrum and you look at international opportunities that may exist to have that completed, for the most part, it would be students that are getting them completed where they originally reside. So having said that, you need to be aware as well, there's a little bit of a difference here between getting the police check completed for employment, as opposed to getting it completed so that you can provide work and assistance to organizations. So in our case, what would happen is, for example, if a student was looking at supporting maybe an event or a sports related tournament in the city of London while they were currently enrolled in the college taking the program, that specifically would be a requirement of that organization for you to have a police check before they would allow you to do that work, right? So really what it does is it kind of just limits or restricts students for experiential learning opportunities in the event they didn't have a police check, right? Now, what may happen is students that graduate may actually get employment opportunities where that's a requirement in itself to complete the police check. All right, but they're really two different entities. So our desire or goal would be to have all of our students that are in the program have completed the vulnerable sector screening application, so that they are provided the most opportunity for themselves through the experiential learning component.
Yeah. And Professor, the vulnerable sector screening is specific to Ontario though, isn't it?
Right, yeah, correct,
So
yeah, correct.
So that's something you would have to apply for, I think, once you're here, for the vulnerable sector screening for sure.
Right, yeah, and we would definitely have processes. If you are an international student who comes from another country, the process would be definitely laid out where we would say, okay, this is how you'd have to go about getting that completed. So it would be an Ontario requirement.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. So wow, that was a lot of questions. If you still have questions, you can enter them. One thing that I wanted to ask, Professor, is around this number of students in a classroom, because so someone was talking about the university education, and in many countries as well, the class sizes are very, very big. So specifically to that, could you talk about the class sizes you're expecting in this program?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, the class sizes a lot of times will be predicated on the number of applicants within a program. In some programs, we have multiple sections of programs. For the most part, in a lot of programs at the college level, we'll have no more than, I would say, when I say no more, I'm talking about maximum number of approximately 40 students, 45 students. In my years of teaching at Fanshawe, I think the largest class size I ever had was about a 52 student class. I've never had that more than once. So for the most part, the class sizes range between, I would say, around 28 to 40. But having said that, I have taught a number of classes that are smaller than 28. All right, so like I said, a lot of that would be a function of the program applicants and whether the numbers are coming in to warrant that. But I can tell you that the plan moving forward, being that we have the numbers for it, is that we have one section, which essentially would be one class for the first year of such a program. In the event they were open to taking more students on, you wouldn't see them have a section of 50, 60, 70 students. It would essentially be broken into two different sections. So from a class size standpoint, yeah, classes are pretty low in comparison to a lot of other a lot of other universities or colleges, depending on the program size, but I would suspect it will be definitely under 40 students in a section.
Fantastic. The next question is around from Alan again, and the question is, how big would the learning curve for the program be for someone that has a background in a different, on an unrelated field?
Yeah,
For
it's a
example,
great
this has a sciences background. Sorry.
Yeah, great question, Alan. I would think from the standpoint of an actual learning curve, being a post-grad program, it would be very similar to a lot of other post-grad programs that we have. I know teaching for a number of years in the human resources programs, we have a post-grad program, and there we'll get a number of students that'll come out of various different backgrounds, whether it's related or could be, you know, psychology, sociology, or what have you. So I think from a learning curve standpoint, it wouldn't be that dramatic, especially a student that's already went through an undergrad program. Having said that, a lot of it would be built around the foundational pieces, like we said, around networking opportunities, around the computer or the technological component of Google Analytics and web-based work. So I think a lot of students that are familiar with that, layout of a program would probably be a little bit more savvy in how they go about entering and feeling comfortable in completing the program. But I would suspect anybody with an undergrad program, whether it be science related or what have you, they quite quickly end up coming around to kind of feeling comfortable in completing the coursework that's required.
Awesome. I think an add-on question from Meenakshi is, she's a professional badminton player. So being a professional in any sport, would that benefit in the program or like the future opportunities maybe?
It actually does. And there's a few different angles we can take in this regard. If you're involved currently in sport, I think what that does is that provides you an opportunity to understand and appreciate some of the connections that would be required to make in such a program for employment opportunities down the road. So the one word of caution around that I would suggest is the fact that people that, and we've seen it in professional sports today a lot, where there are some people that were phenomenal players in their domain, and that didn't necessarily translate to success in a coaching role. You know, you see a lot of the best players in the world in some of these sports, they try to get into coaching and it wasn't really for them, right? They were naturally skilled in the work that they performed in the sporting world. But having said that, it's just a matter of understanding the difference between being a professional athlete or being an athlete in a sport versus getting into the management side of things. And those are two different aspects of work. So I would suggest that anybody that does come from a specific background in sport would definitely be providing themselves with a platform for success moving forward, whether it be connection based or opportunity or what have you.
And I also hope, Meenakshi, you do join Fanshawe's badminton team. We, in our athletics, we do really, really well in the province in badminton because of many of our students as well. So I do hope you try out for that team as well.
Definitely.
When you arrive. The next question is around online classes, the timing of online. So I would say that question is not particularly relevant to this program. There are online classes happening right now for some of our courses and programs, but this program is not running right now. It starts in the fall, so it's not relevant. There is some aspect of blended learning, I think, in many of our programs. If Professor, if you wanted to speak to that, but specifically for this program, there is no online learning or online classes for this program planned or anything.
Right, and if I can add to that, Saurabh, it's the online question is a really intriguing question right now because of what's happening in the pandemic situation. And as all of you on here would know, that things are changing so frequently that the college is in a position where they have to obviously respond in kind to the given circumstances that we're experiencing right now. So you're right, the program has been developed as a program that would be delivered in a blended setting, blended meaning that there'd be a component or a portion of the course that would be completed online, but other aspects of the course would be completed in the classroom. There are programs that are developed in an online capacity through that delivery method moving forward. Now, developing a program of that nature is a little bit different in responding to the current times with the pandemic situation. So I can tell you at this point in time, the program is being launched as a face-to-face program, so more of a blended program where it's face-to-face with a little bit of online interconnectivity. But in the event decisions were made to change programs starting in the fall to online development and delivery, then we would be going in the same direction as the other programs in the college. So there's definitely a lot of flexibility to be made there, but the program specifically will be a blended program where there'll be face-to-face interaction. The second part of that question too, Saurabh, revolved around timing. I saw timing in the question. I don't know specifically where you're going with that timing aspect, but if I can hazard a guess, what you're looking at is timing from the standpoint of when courses or classes would be scheduled. At Fanshawe being such a large institution, it's very, very difficult to really be able to comprehend from our standpoint when classes would run. A lot of it has to do with a whole myriad of things, such as room availability and other schedules for other programs, and when students would take other courses in this program. So really, students could be taking courses anywhere from 8 o'clock in the morning until approximately 8 o'clock at night. Most of the courses fall under that area of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So that's kind of gives you a little bit of understanding of how courses are rolled out.
Thank you, Professor. I also like around timing, I also like to say the number of hours per week could be 20 hours to 25 hours approximately. But that doesn't mean for students, especially that's the only amount of work you put in. I say for every hour in class, you need to budget for an hour before the class, an hour after the class to actually really get the best value out of your classes as well. So yeah, so class timings is another question that generally students have.
Right.
The next question is around grading methods for this program specifically, but I think I'm assuming it's not specific to this program, it's general around all our business programs. So if you can talk about how grading happens.
Yeah,
program as well,
yes,
please.
definitely. So grading methods really do vary across courses and programs. For the most part, though, the generalities around grading, 50% is a pass in a course and those kind of things. I think specifically what you're looking at the question is around evaluation methods and how are we evaluating students for success in the courses that we run in the program. So the various courses will include different types of evaluation. So in some cases, students may be evaluated through completing a quiz or a test, could be related to completing Dropbox activities or assignments, could be online discussions. There are a number of different ways that students would be graded. I'm currently in discussions with some organizations around developing live client projects in some of the courses where students will be evaluated based on completing the assignment that is developed in relation to work that they would complete with the organization on a specific assignment, right? So grading really is developed around a specific rubric for the assignment, and then that's communicated to the students so that they're aware of the expectations when they go about completing their work. Yeah, so grading will vary depending on the evaluation that's utilized.
Awesome, fantastic. We have had a lot of really good questions today. And thank you, Professor Reed, for answering all these questions with that much depth and insight. I don't see any open questions anymore. So I would pass this on to Professor Reed to share any parting thoughts with all the students.
Yeah, so great. Thanks for having me, Saurabh, in this session. And it's been my pleasure to provide as much opportunity as I can for the prospective students and some of the others that are on the presentation that may be able to kind of promote and help assist with the communication of our program. So anybody that does have any questions relative to the program, feel free to reach out to me. So I don't know if you have the information specifically on a slide or anything, Saurabh, but my email address I can provide you. It's breid@fanshawec.ca. So that would be B as in Bill, REID @fanshawec.ca. So if you have any questions specific to the program, you can definitely reach out to me.
I have also typed it in the chat box so that everyone who's attending has access to that.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you, Professor Reed, for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. You will get a copy of this webinar in your email within this week. And thank you again for joining us from wherever in the world you're joining us from. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you, Professor Reed, again.
Great, thank you. Take care.
Thank you.